Hi, welcome to Inside the Castle Walls, the show where we talk about video games, music, and anything in between. My name is Carl.
And I'm Will.
Nice to be with you guys. Today we're going to be talking about modern video game music.
Now this is a topic that both Carl and I are very eager to talk about. We've actually mentioned it a lot on our video game music podcast. Anyways, today, while we talk about this, we're going to be playing this game for the Xbox 360 called Call of Duty Black Ops.
Never heard of this one. Maybe some of you will. But anyway, there's a lot of things about modern video game music that Will and I want to say, so should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's crazy that it's reached such a point in like pop culture that people that never have played video games still are very familiar with the music.
Right.
And that's not really something that's the case as much anymore with modern games.
Oh,
yeah,
no,
so
I agree.
I don't think there's like a theme from Call of Duty that everyone would be able to sing on command. I mean, I just don't think that happens in modern game music anymore.
Well, to me, the big thing that I'm so attracted to in video game music is, especially in the heyday, the NES or even the 16-bit era, or I guess especially onto the 64-bit era.
How come I don't see you on my radar?
I don't know.
Do you see me?
Yeah, actually no, I don't.
Oh, okay.
My big thing is I love 8-bit music and 16-bit music just because it's so memorable, and it's like, also it's just impressive the limitations that they had with the hardware and what type of awesome music they were able to create.
It's because of those limitations that they were so memorable. I mean, if you always had the technology of, you know, Hollywood strings and full orchestra and anything you could possibly want to do, I don't think the music would have been as imaginative or as memorable.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I mean, they had that set of limitations with the NES with those 3 channels, so they were forced to create really good melodies and good lines on all the channels.
Right.
Otherwise, it just would have been awful to listen to. And there were a lot of games that were really bad to listen to because they weren't well done. But I feel like nowadays, composers are probably a lot more lazy, and in general, what they're trying to do is different. Their objective is different, and I think a big reason is because the games themselves, like everything other than the music, is already so immersive nowadays that the music isn't as important. The role of the music has gone down.
Very true.
Back in the day, like on the NES, you had like little blips and these little like crappy little sprites, and if you're trying to have like, let's say a game like this, some sort of action war game or something, a big part of what would create the excitement,
the whole soundtrack,
would be the
music and the sound effects.
So I mean, it was such a huge factor in the experience. Whereas now, I mean, this looks awesome. It feels like I'm playing a war game. The sound effects are really well done. There's not even any music right now on this split screen. I mean, I don't know. Maybe later we could try to go to the actual campaign and check out some of that music.
Yeah. Well, I guess the big thing to me is modern video game music. I feel like they're sacrificing effectivity for memorability, and even like it's somewhat similar to the way I feel about modern film score. Is it's like they've gotten so carried away on making it dark and gritty and like really make it effective and fit the tone, but they're losing some of the fact that like old film score used to be able to stand on its own, and old video game music used to stand on its own, and now it's like it feels like it's just made as a tool.
Well, the reason why you're relating those two is because modern video game music is pretty much the same thing as film score nowadays.
Yeah.
There's really not much of a difference. Like when you hear the soundtracks to these modern games, especially these war games, they sound like film score. Not particularly good film score.
Well, and we're talking about melodically they sound similar. We're not necessarily talking about, you know, it's probably a lot harder to compose for an interactive medium, and there's certain things that you have to think for being a modern day video game composer, certain things that I've probably never thought about. But I guess to me what I enjoy about music is those memorable melodies. And one thing that I want to talk about is the 64-bit era. That was sort of what, I mean, especially me, and I'll say the Nintendo 64 especially, I feel like that's the last classic system that had like really good memorable music.
Totally.
And what's so interesting is that they had darker, grittier FPSs, like Perfect Dark or GoldenEye.
But they're able to straddle the line. They still had melodic music. It was still effective, and it was adult or grown up, but at least it had good melody. I mean, I think part of that was not just the particular system or the company, it was just the time. I think times have changed where with these games nowadays, I mean, really melodic music, I mean, in some ways, would it really even fit in this type of a game? I mean, I think it could, but who's to say?
Well, look at something like Perfect Dark. That was a dark, gritty game. And
where are you? I can't find you at all.
I have no idea.
There's not even a radar. Why is there no radar?
I don't know.
How is this fun? Let's go to the actual campaign.
that music, like the Grant Kirkhope music, was really melodic, and there was a lot of really memorable things about it. And it's like, that never struck me as being out of place. It wasn't trying to be goofy. It wasn't like Super Mario Brothers, but it was still melodic and memorable.
Yeah.
And I feel like no matter what type of music you're composing for, you can still do that. You know, whether you have a full orchestra, some of the most melodic music ever composed was for orchestra. I just think it's kind of a disappointment that it's like a big scene like this. This is the intro of the game. There's no music.
But now that you have this amazing graphics, you really don't need music all the time. And it's kind of effective to have silence, and just the graphics and the imagery are able to convey the emotions, which you couldn't do in the NES. But I think there's a time and place for good, catchy melodies.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of missed opportunities with some of these games.
Well, even if it's like not a catchy, memorable melody, like as long as it's doing something effective musically and not just the same, like, we'll just have some, you know, the typical thing that they do where it's like,
or I think
boring.
Most of what they do is just have like taiko drums, that it's just all kind of drum bass, which you hear in every single game, every single movie, and it's not doing anything new, and it all sounds the same, and it's just kind of blah, you know?
Right.
It's not really standing out. It's not doing anything specifically to evoke a certain emotion.
Carl, I'm getting kind of bored. I know you wanted to play this game.
I haven't even played the game yet.
Please, can we do this?
Alright, Rayman Origins.
I love this game.
This is a great game. Now this is actually a rare example of a modern game that has really catchy music, and it kind of, well, I mean, the type of game that it is, again, it's an old school side-scrolling platformer.
But I guess the one thing that I don't like about this is now I feel like it's making a separation where if you have a goofy platformer, then you can have music.
Exactly.
If you don't, then you just need to. It's just it's like etching in those conventions even more heavily.
Yeah, I mean, purposely, I don't think there needs to be these two distinct camps of video game music. Like if you have Rayman Origin type of game, then we can have this kind of really nice melodic, happy music. But if you're having a Call of Duty game, it's just going to be taiko drums. I mean, it doesn't need to be happy, but it can be something like John Williams, or, you know, I mean, there's a lot of really, like, effective modern film score that is really interesting musically, you know?
A lot of it isn't, but...
But there is some of it, you know?
Yeah, there's still some.
I think that's interesting how now it's so polarized, you know? You have games like this, and it always surprises me because I guess whenever I play a modern game, I'm not expecting anything interesting musically at all.
Right.
So when there's even a shred of something, like, I mean, this game's music, if this came out in like 94, like, no one would be talking about it. But nowadays it's like, oh wow, there's like melodies and it's playful and it's fun. I mean, it's kind of sad.
I guess the thing is, though, the one problem that I have with this music is that it's pretty good, but it just feels a little bit like overly simple. Like there's not even like trying to write a melody. It's just like having goofy instruments and stuff.
One thing I really like is I like that.
Yeah, there's these little. If you're not familiar with the game, there's these cute little like creature things.
Am I ever going to be able to get up on this fork? Jeez. I mean, I know I'm bad at video games, but not this bad. Holy moly.
Okay.
Actually, that little that's actually a ripoff of Mario theme, isn't it?
Right. Well, it has that
funny.
same rhythm, and it's doing that sort of Latin style thing.
But that's a catchy thing that gets in my head, makes me want to keep playing the game.
Yeah, that is
so good
pretty
job.
catchy.
I don't know who did the music.
I wish
for
the
this
main
game.
overworld themes would be a little bit more catchy.
Yeah, they're a little bit more ambient, but you know what? They're not bad, and I think they do a pretty decent job of...
Yeah, they're fine. They don't, but again, it's like they don't help or hurt. They don't get in the way. And again, this is no discredit to this composer, this type of music. It's just
these are just microcosms.
I guess I would just like to make the argument that you can have it both ways. You can have melodic music and have it be effective and immersive, and you don't need to pick one or the other.
You can have it both ways, and there's a time and place for both. There's a time when you want to hear a catchy tune, and there's a time when you don't. And I think in almost every game, there's probably opportunities in that game where you can have both. And I think that there's not really any modern games that I can think of that fully capitalize on that as much as, like, you know, like a Zelda Ocarina of Time or any of those classic soundtracks.
Yeah, I feel like Zelda's a perfect example.
They're so
Zelda
musically
music
driven.
Sounds like film score. All the Zelda games to this date still have great music. I can't think of one.
Pop me, pop me, pop me.
Oh, dang it.
Please pop me. It's the only thing I ever ask. Alright, well, that's enough of that. No, Zelda is a good example, and Ocarina of Time especially. Music is at the forefront of that whole game. It's almost a device in the plot of the game.
Right, that's another thing that's so brilliant. But I guess the big thing to me just is that...
I put my controller down, so I was kind of signaling for you to do the same.
No, I'm going to keep playing as this fat guy.
Then I'm going to play too. What were you saying? Something about Zelda music composing?
Well, what I like about Zelda music is that it's always there, but it works like a really good film score does. That game is able to have both. It's able to have good melodies that really service. Like, when you're running around the Hyrule field, like, that sort of bump, 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 like, that really helps that. You know, if you didn't have that, and I just, it makes me wonder, like, a game like Assassin's Creed, like, they could have some type of memorable march
I mean,
like
Assassin's
that.
Creed, I don't want to nag, because I think Jesper did a pretty phenomenal job with the music of that
definitely.
game. It's definitely a lot more ambient, and in general, his style of composing is not very melodic or catchy. So, in some ways, I definitely don't want to use that as an example of something that's not. I think that's actually one of the rare cases of modern game music that is actually really effective.
I guess it's just like, still though, that there's opportunities to have rousing type of score, and there's opportunities to have music that.
In my opinion,
so
I
like
think Jesper's work on the Hitman games was actually better than Assassin's Creed.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
I love the Hitman games and Freedom Fighters too. That was really cool. That had sort of like a Russian.
Yeah, that was cool.
Kind of.
That was a really underappreciated game.
Yeah, that game. Check out Freedom Fighters. That's a good game. That's last generation of consoles.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Jesper, but he loves those choirs, doesn't he?
Yeah, you know what's so funny is though, even back then, I felt like music was catchier. I think like in the
I'm
last.
just getting emotional talking about Jesper Kid.
In the last few years, like, the music composers that do video games, I don't know if it's laziness, I don't know if it just happens to be the games that have become popular happen to not have the best music, but video game music, I just think it's ironic that now it's so popular and everyone talks about it, and there's like video games live, and now video game music is sort of at its decline.
I completely agree. It is ironic. I think it's going to take more games like these Wario Lands, like these Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Or even iPhone games.
It's going to take imaginative games like Tiny Wings, games like that are playful and colorful, that are going to warrant colorful music.
Yeah.
I think once we start getting more of those kind of games, I feel like our tastes are gonna start rising.
I think part
again.
of the thing, a lot of the games that are being made nowadays are striving for pure realism, and I think eventually we're going to realize that we're not going to be able to perfectly emulate realism ever.
And that's really not the purpose why anyone plays a game.
Right. So, but
someone
once,
plays a game to escape reality.
Once people start picking art styles again, and every game has a distinct art style, then we'll be able to have more colorful music, because I think game designers don't realize that gamers can suspend their disbelief even if it doesn't look completely real. That's why people still play Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah. The more I think about it,
games.
I shouldn't really nag too much on these Call of Duties and games like this, because I do think in some ways the music of those games maybe is effective to those type of games.
I think it's definitely
I guess my
effective.
opinion is I've had enough of those type of games.
Right.
I think I could use a lot more colorful, just fun. I mean, I play video games to have fun, and music is a big factor in that for me. And so there's so many games that I've played that even if it's a fun game, if the music isn't very memorable and it doesn't make me want to keep on playing the game, then it's not a success in my opinion.
Okay, so what did we learn today, Carl?
Well, we learned that modern video game music has a different role in games, and who's to say whether or not it's less or more effective in the games that it's in. But I feel like we're just producing different games nowadays. And in my opinion, I think in yours as well, I'd like to see more kind of old school style games that feature colorful, exciting visuals and music.
Yeah, I'd like to see more Mega Man 9s and 10s.
Exactly. I'd like to see Sonic Team kind of following the path of Mega Man 9 and doing like an old school Sonic game with that exact engine. Nintendo, that would be, yeah. There's lots of that kind of stuff they could do.
Well, I mean, I think the future of video games looks bright, and hopefully the future of game music will be bright as well.
I agree. I think independent mobile games is kind of
That's
where a lot of that
it's
stuff
gonna
is
be
going to be happening.
Well, thanks a lot for watching.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed this episode. This has been Inside the Castle Walls. I'm Carl.
I'm Will. Oh, and feel free to check out the link below to our video game music podcast, co-hosted by Carl and myself.
The Super Marcato Brothers.
Right.
All right, guys. Have a great week.
Okay, peace out.
See you guys.
Wanna play some Sonic?
I'd love to.